welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with Stephanie. I am Stephanie Buckland, your host, and I am very excited and delighted to be interviewing my friend and colleague, Siarra Decomi, today. Hi, Siarra. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm so excited to be here.
I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. So many people are struggling with their business, especially like the solopreneurs in the wellness industry. So I feel like you're gonna help lots and lots of people. So this is so cool. I'd love for you to give our audience an introduction of who you are, what you're up to, and what kind of magic shows up in the world as a result.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so thanks again for this opportunity to interview with you and to chat. So amazing. So yeah, I can go into like great detail, but I'm Siarra Decomi. I recently founded True Leverage Coaching and Consulting, and on the coaching side, I really focus on female business owners, high achieving females who really, I always describe it as they could be massively stressed out. They could have just kind of lost track of their purpose, and they could just be all over the place in their business where they sort of have that idea of what they want to do or where they want to go, or they're already doing it, but they're hit a spot in their life where they just need that extra support in their life. And I found that just in my history of being in business for over 20 years in commercial lending and finance and real estate, that I felt like I was often working in a man's world and really competitive and really out there, and it was just like go 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 go, push 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 push. And so many times throughout my life and my career, I really burned myself out because of the stress and the overwhelm. And then you layer in having a family and like having wanting to be a high achieving business person, and then having a family who's very busy. And yeah, just I got to the point where I just kind of hit the wall at many points in my life. And so I find that I really connect to women who are going through that space in their business now, where they just really need some support to get to that next level. Because so many times we have these past conditioning thoughts that come up that we may or may not be aware of, and those thoughts in so many cases just get in our way when we don't really realize it. And so to have a coach who's there, I mean, you look at any high performance athlete, they have a coach, right? Because that coach can see the things that they can't see because they're in it. And so when you have a coach that can say, hey, did you see it this way? Did you see it that way? And oftentimes we beat ourselves up so much in our head that when we express that, like I've had so many clients where it's like they're telling me about this situation, and they're telling me they're kind of like beating themselves up over it. I'm like, well, what about seeing it this way? I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, of course not, because we get in our own way. And so I love that opportunity to work with women who are in that space. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And then what was there was another question about the magic or something.
What kind of magic shows up in the world as a result of what you do. So I understand you also work with horses.
I do, I do. Yeah, so I'll give you some background on that just in the audience as well. So in my 20 plus year career in lending and banking and real estate, I saw a couple years ago what was kind of a shift that was taking place, not only in myself, but just my connection to my clients. And I was finding that the clients that I had had for many, many years that had kind of come with me through different ventures I was on throughout my career, I had this amazing intimate relationship with them where they would ask me questions about, should I sell my business, or what do you think about this or that, or so I found that I really wanted to dive deeper into building a relationship with clients on a different level, on not just helping them with their profit and loss statements and their balance sheet, but actually supporting them through various transitions in their life. And so I went through a series of training. The first one was business coaching and consulting certification, and then the second one was called a Rewilders training, which I think the word rewilder is now becoming a little bit more popular. And basically, it's if you look at the wild. There was this really cool video done about wolves, because wolves were pulled out of the wild, and as they started to reintroduce the wolves back into nature, everything started to change and shift and realign, because the wolves were doing their part in the ecosystem. And so that's what Rewilder is all about, is like supporting someone through getting back into their own ecosystem and their own space. And so anyway, so along my training, my journey, I was in a conversation with a group on Zoom, and one of the facilitators had asked, what does your coaching practice look like? And I'm kind of describing it because for years and years, even throughout college, I wanted to create more of like a retreat type environment where people can come out of their busy lives and come into an environment where they're in nature and they're settling into that wisdom, that innate wisdom that we all have when we can drop in and be quiet for a little while. And so, and I'm describing this whole thing, and I said, I think there's horses there. And so someone had reached out to me and said, you should connect with Cassandra in Malibu. She does these horse trains people how to coach with horses. And so I was like, yeah, that's absolutely the direction I want to go. And so I ended up doing this 9-month long program. And it's so funny how one thing just leads to the next. But I was in the middle of the program. We would go out to Malibu and spend a week there with the horses and doing various different trainings. And then I came back to Arizona, and I had gone down to Tucson, and I was meeting with a woman who's now my board member, and I was meeting with her and her horses. And next to her horses were, because it was like they had these giant pens for the horses, and next to her horses was this wild Mustang. And she said, yeah, we're not really supposed to work with him energetically because the owner is very particular and doesn't want us really, messing with him, like just kind of leave him alone. But I'm like, I don't like people telling me what to do. So yeah, I found I was so incredibly attracted to this horse. Like my energy just kept moving towards him. And finally, he and I are standing. We're, between fencing, but we're just standing there staring at each other. And I can just feel this horse's vibration like I had never felt before. And I knew right then and there that boy had to be mine. So I ended up talking to the owner, and it turns out he was a trainer, and he was kind of helping gentle these Mustangs that had been adopted from the Bureau of Land Management. And then as I started to study the story about Mustangs and what had been happening with the Bureau of Land Management, they inhumanely capture these horses by the tens of thousands every year, and they basically fly down with helicopters and run them for hours upon hours. And it's a horrible process. And so I found out about this, and I decided I wanted to make a difference, like any difference I possibly could with these horses, because they get separated from their families, which horses are herd animals. They live for their families, and the males get separated from the females. The males get castrated, so they have no way of reproducing. And so it just was, it broke my heart to hear what was happening, and not to point the finger at government entities, but it just, I thought, how can we make a difference? And since I was already in this program moving forward with, coaching with horses, I ended up starting a nonprofit, which is called Wild Hooves Open Hearts. And yeah, so now we have Samson, my first horse, and then we just adopted another one and she is a gorgeous little filly Palomino. She's between 1 and 2, and she's just tiny and so sweet. And she's already letting us touch her and rub on her, and so yeah, and my Samson is almost fully trained. And so the idea behind it is to just really give them as much freedom and autonomy as possible. And when I really look at what I stand for in the world, that's it, is that people and horses and animals, and we all have freedom. And so these two are the very beginning. We're looking at buying some land up north, and we'll expand the herd, and then we will open up the retreat center at that point, and people can come and visit and go through a process there as well. So
Beautiful.
it's a lot. Yeah.
That's yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I am in love with horses. I had a opportunity when I was a kid. I was in Girl Scouts, and every summer I would go to camp. I would do Girl Scout camp. When I was 13, I went to horse camp, and I got to spend an entire 2 weeks with horses. And we did everything. We groomed them, we fed them, we baled hay, we did all the things, and even mucking their stalls, like everything. And we had at the very end of that, we took the horses out into the wilderness and set up camp in this remote location with no bathrooms, no nothing. The horses stayed with us. We camped there for a night. Then we took the horses over the mountain. We could see, we were actually in the San Jacinto Mountains in California, and over the mountain we could see Fresno. And it was just like really surreal because I'd never done anything like that before. And I will never forget it because it was just such a powerful experience with the horses and that connection, and that everything we got to do with those horses, it made me like think, okay, I need to adopt a horse at some point in my life, or just spend time with horses generally.
Right.
So totally get that. They're just such majestic, beautiful animals. So I
Yeah.
totally understand. I also had an opportunity once to do Reiki for a horse who was out in
Yeah.
Ojai, and that was a powerful experience in itself. So, I mean, I totally get that. So what's your vision using the horses with the coaching? How would that exactly work?
Yeah, so it's really a partnership, and the way that I learned it, because there's a lot of equine assisted therapies and equine assisted all kinds of things. So we're not therapists, so I don't want to put that out there that we are, but
Right.
we operate from a place of like somatics, and so we walk the clients through a process of really helping them ground into their bodies, because, well, for various reasons. Number one, that's where horses live from, right? Because they're herd animals, and they are grounded in 100% all the time. I mean, it just,
Mhm.
and because of the herd mentality with them, there's like various structures they have within the herd. There's always a lead mare, which the lead mare is really like guiding. Like she's the one that's like, okay, guys, we're out, right? Because there's danger coming, or we got to hit the next water spot. We got to find the next food. Like she's the one that's like clear on the vision. And so we oftentimes work with a lot of women in the program, just because women seem to be really attracted to this vehicle. And so it's helping women get grounded into their body, like really feel into that lead mare sense of who they are. And we help them through various somatic practices and exercises to do that. And then what we do is we start then moving in with the horses. And the way that we do the work with the horses again, it's kind of different than other models. We don't put halters on them, we don't tie them up, we don't force them to work with us. There, we basically, we have over an acre pasture right now, and so the horses are totally free to come and go as they please. And so we have an interaction and a dialogue with them, but it's totally at their choice. Like they're the ones that they're the ones that get to choose to come over to us or not. And especially being wild animals at one point, they're very, very curious, but they're also like, we're just not going to force them to work with us. And I think like with equine therapy, you find that, and generally speaking, the horse is haltered and they're like, this is what we're doing right now. Like, we're going to use
Right.
you in order to get to what we want. Whereas our method is, and I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong about this, it's just a different model because again, it's all about freedom. And so if we're wanting to experience our own freedom, we want to make sure we're giving that to the horse as well. And what ends up happening is, and generally speaking, the horses want to hang out because they're very curious and they're like, "What are you guys up to?" And when humans go in grounded and in their body, it feels really natural for the horse. It doesn't feel like there's a threat. It doesn't feel like there's something to deal with. And I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine, we did a workshop in April, and she had some medical stuff that had come up for her that had been pretty intense. And she she one of the things, so we did all the grounding, and then I suggested that the participants pick a horse, and then we're going to have some time, you individually, with that horse, and be with the horse and ask the horse a question, like something that you're just trying to get clarity on. And of course, the experience is different for everybody, but the horse is very reflective in nature. Like, they're going to basically mimic what we have going on in so many
Mm.
cases. And so in this case, she got the answers that she needed, which were of course very personal to her, but she was blown away, like crying in tears, like that was exactly what I needed to hear, because it just, I already knew it, but when the horse like reflected it back to me, it was like it was so obvious and so real.
That's beautiful. I love it. I think it's a beautiful model. I can't wait to see how this all plays out for this beautiful wellness community, all these people that really need your help. So that's so cool. Speaking of which, it sounds like you and I have similar experiences working in a man's world. Personally, I started out in corporate America working in prosthetics. I was getting insurance authorizations, but that entire industry is male dominated. So it
Yeah.
was, I think, maybe 20% women in the prosthetist field and mostly men. And what I found in that particular industry, because these are healers, these are practitioners, but they all had their own way of doing things, their own like ego led, this is how I have to do this, this is the only way. And so I had to work around a lot of male egos. And I think that's the biggest challenge working in a male dominated industry is when women come in, they come in with nurturing and compassion and wanting to collaborate. And yet men are like, no, no collaboration. It is logic only. There's like this disconnect between male and female counterparts in the industries. So I'd love your feedback on that particular industry that you came from and like specifically how did you work with it? How did you work through it?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking that. So, um, it it's looking back now, and I think the industry has changed quite a bit, but um, I just think some of it comes down to like our conditioning. Like for
Mm,
me, it was I had parents that were very much like, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get that job, get the 401k, then you get married, right? It was just like, this is kind of your program and this is how it's supposed to work. And yeah, throughout my career, I was just so incredibly driven to succeed because it just was completely drilled into me that that's the way it was. And I also grew up in the Bay Area, so I think that it was such a breeding ground for competition. that I
Oh,
just
yeah.
learned very, very quickly. Like, if you want to get ahead, you got to push hard, you got to work hard, you got to fight, fight, fight. Like, it just was this thing. And so, yeah, and I picked industries that were very male dominant. And so I just jumped right in. Like, that it's looking back now, I would never in a million years like do it this way, but I just would jump right in and just compete just like they would. And so although I would probably be the more quiet, submissive one, not like as aggressive, but in my mind and in my actions, I was almost always a top producer, and I was always just really pushing to be number one. And ultimately over time, I that just burned me out. It just I
Yeah.
recognized that that way of living was like push, 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 go, go, go. I'll sleep later. Like, I don't need to sleep,
Right.
just all of this. It just was my adrenals got fried, my thyroid got out of whack. I mean, it's this impact that we don't see and we don't recognize because it's so normal. It's so normal to just work really hard and be really stressed out and just drink a ton of coffee and just work through it. So yeah, it wasn't until years later that I ended up having a major autoimmune diagnosis, and that kind of floored me because I didn't quite get it. I'm like, I'm so healthy. Um, I work out, I eat reasonably well, and my relationships are okay. Just I didn't have like something that would point to, oh yeah, you need to change your diet or exercise more. Like, I had all that. so so it really allowed me, and it was interesting too because my ex-husband and I had reconciled, and then we were breaking up again for the second time. And this was back in 2015. And I moved out. I bought the house I'm in now, and I moved out, and the next day got this diagnosis, and it was like, oh my God, like my entire
Wow.
world fell apart. Like, here, now I have a mortgage payment. Now I have this friggin' thing to deal with. Like, what? And I did the same exact thing, Stephanie. Like, okay, well, I'm just gonna fight my way through it. I'm just gonna fight
Oh,
it, fight it. I'm gonna read every book. It's like, because I didn't like it didn't kick it really. I didn't realize like what brought me to that space. I thought, well, it's just my karma or it's just my whatever, just like it didn't really it didn't really settle in for years. And then what ended up happening was a friend of mine did, and this is all on my website. I kind of spell out the story, but a friend of mine, she did a hypnotherapy session with me, and I listened to it every single night. And then one day, a couple months later, she was like, How are you feeling? And I thought, oh my gosh, I actually feel okay. Because I had this like massive anxiety. I'm like, okay, even though I'm convinced myself is no big deal, like I'll be fine, it was always in the back of my mind, like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
right.
And so after the hypnotherapy session, I think that was the thing that just kind of flipped everything on its side because all of a sudden I wasn't having the anxiety. I wasn't like living from this space of stress and anxiousness. And I could just focus more and allow more to come in. And then from that point forward, I started to really open up to different ways of healing, and then it just was like overnight. I found the right, I don't know, I don't want to say I found the right external thing. I think it was I know it was an internal shift. It was an
Mhm.
internal mindset shift that allowed me to finally recognize that I actually do have the ability to heal. And that's
Yes.
another thing I help women with too, is like if they are going through that. I mean, I would love to help women like catch it before they get to that point because it's
Absolutely.
totally possible. But yeah, and then it's like as I looked back, then I started to put the pieces together. Oh, okay. So I was like the stress and the worry and the concern and the just kind of like running on fumes all the time. Like
Right.
all of that eventually just took a toll because I had this mindset that I had to constantly be driving, constantly.
Right, right. So now that you've had this experience, how has your life shifted? How have your practices shifted so you don't get to that place?
Yeah. It's incredible because I see things so much sooner. Like
Mm,
if I have an experience in my body, if I know it's like I'll get something funky going on in my body, I know it's like it went too far, right? Because it's like my body's then expressing, okay, like when you get pain, right? It's like, oh,
mm,
okay, that the build up to the pain is like the point in which you could actually stop the pain from happening. And so
mhm,
now I know if it's already hit my body, like I should have made a correction prior to, but I see it so much quicker now. And then I can kind of go through my processes of like healing and getting back to my own grounded self. Because even as
yeah.
a somatic practitioner, like I forget to breathe sometimes, you know.
Yeah. So, seeing as this is a podcast for optimal wellness, I'd love to hear what your techniques are. What do you do to manage your stress or to get out of that overwhelm or that? Hang on a second. Pause. I don't know what this is. Oh, they stopped. That was fun. Yeah.
All good.
So, yeah.
So yeah, I have a lot of various practices and I like to switch them up to because I feel like if I do something for too long, it just becomes this kind of repetitive thing where I'm just not getting that much out of it. But I would say for me, the thing I always do, hands down, is some kind of meditation in the morning, and I vary it. Like right now, I'm following this great guy on YouTube that has a series of short hypnosis actually, and they're really good. And I like to start my day with just grounding into my body, having that meditation time, whether it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes. It's somewhere typically in between that. And then I do a quick journal writing. I have a book called The 5 Minute Journal, and that's on Amazon. It walks you through a process of like, what are you grateful for today? And for me, I find that it's most advantageous if I'm really present with it. Because if I just make
Yeah.
my list, I'm like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. It's really if I ground in and I take the time and I'm like, okay, I'm grateful for my dog or my whatever it is. But I really experience that, like really feel it in my body and allow myself to slow down and really be with that gratitude. And yeah, so that's usually my morning. And then sometimes I'll do some like prayer meditation as well, and then always exercise. So the exercise could be walking, like right now I'm really into walking, and then lifting weights. I mean, those are the things that work for me, but I've also been incorporating yoga. So just anything to move the body. And I always tell people, like, if you don't have an exercise regimen, just move the body a little, like turn on some music and dance for 5 minutes, like
Mhm.
whatever it is that makes you feel good, that kind of moves you around a little bit, whether it's like stretching or walking or, whatever it is, but just moving the body. I think it's so important.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I think that that is one of the things that people forget, especially working in an office or even working for yourself from home. Just work, 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 push, push, push. And it's like you forget that you have a body. You forget that you have to take care of this thing. you know? And
Yeah.
I mean, I even forget sometimes, like, I need to move. I need to get out of my seat and do something.
Yeah.
I personally, I just get up and go like wash dishes or do some kind of chore because that'll
Yeah.
keep get me moving. And I'm, working from home, so I may as well do something
Yeah.
productive while I'm here. And so, yeah, I think that's wonderful. I would love to hear a little bit more about your training in somatics because that's something that personally I actually started out in a holistic movement class, and
Okay.
this was man 2011, 2012. And in that class, she was talking about somatic movement, and she taught us all about Thomas Hanna and Moshe Feldenkrais and um, Rachel Bowman and like all of these wonderful people that have expressed different movement practices that move the body and heal the body. And it's
Mhm.
all about somatic awareness and getting into your body and paying attention. And I actually think that Thomas Hanna was the one that coined that term of
Oh,
somatic movement, and
yeah.
his story was amazing. So I love movement. I actually did a YouTube video, which I might tag on this video,
Yeah.
about somatic movement because it is a very powerful thing to know that you can step into really any kind of exercise practice. It could be
Yeah.
anything, high intensity interval training, or, go walk on a treadmill or do some yoga or Pilates, but being present while you're doing the movement is the key to
Yeah.
that. So tell me about it. What do you experience while you were in that training, and how has it changed your life since?
Yeah, so the all the somatic work I did was with the reflective horse training, and so
Mm,
we trained not only with the horses and but we trained on on our own, so individually together in a group, and then also with the horses. But it's really a lot of like the things that I've learned are really about more breath work, like actually breathing into the body and breathing into the belly. And I do a lot of like meditation. I've done a couple different audio meditations, and I think I have a few on YouTube as well. And it's really about like grounding into the body and just allowing that energy to really move through. And the way that I learned it was like from the ground up. So if you're sitting in a chair, right, and you want to close your eyes and then breathe in, like you want to breathe into your belly, but then also as you're breathing, like pull that energy up from your feet, like from the ground up into your head. So the energy is like moving up. And I know some other somatics go from the top down. So I don't know which way is right or wrong, but that's the way that I learned it. And I think primarily for us working with horses is that you want to be grounded. You want to be grounded in the ground on your in your body
yeah.
while you're working with horses because they're giant animals and they can move very quickly. And
They
just
can
from a
hurt you.
safety,
Yes.
yeah, from a safety perspective, like it's the more grounded you are, like you're kind of moving with the herd. So in the event that they're all of a sudden like, boom, we got to move, like you're already kind of like in your body and you can be, have that present moment awareness to where you can move quickly. And we actually had that happen in one of our training. There's giant arena, and we're standing. There's three of us. We're actually sitting up against a railing, and there's two girls that are working with the horses, and we're doing this activity called moving the horses. And so the girls on below are getting the horses going, right? And there's three horses, and they're giant, and they're all of a sudden like running like crazy. Well, one of them comes up where we are, and the other two follow. And within moments, we were just boom, like we had to jump off the railing like into the ground because these horses were just coming through, and we were either gonna get clobbered or we had to jump. And so I know it sounds really silly, but it's like that was part of being grounded and being in the body. Like had you been stressing or worrying or thinking about what you needed to do, like it would have been a disaster. So
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And
So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of what you're teaching is really about mindfulness and mindset, like being present, being grounded, being in gratitude, being in that. It
correct.
feels like um very much mental, like everything in here, which a lot of us as CEOs of companies, we get stuck in here because, we have to make the bottom line work. We have to figure out how to get to the black. There's so many things in running a business that takes you out of your body and puts you just in your brain and focusing and functioning on that it's next to impossible to not get stuck in that because you're
Exactly.
just go go go, so getting out of that and having a practice to get out of that is so powerful. I mean, personally, if I run out of water, that is my cue to get up, go get some water, take a breath, get
Yeah.
back to my presence, and just get grounded again because I've been elsewhere and my water cup's empty. Wait, when did that happen? It's like
Right.
you
Yeah.
almost forget what you're doing because you've got so much going on. And
Yeah.
so I think that that is such a powerful thing to teach people about these practices
Yeah.
that it can help them with their health, obviously, manage their stress, get out of their anxiety. That's huge. Even avoiding burnout
Right.
because you have practices in place that can help you when you're feeling that. I mean, this is such a powerful thing. So thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this work is powerful. Um, so what do you have to offer right now? What are you rolling out, or is there anything coming up, promotions or anything like that?
Yeah, so I have a 90-day program called Source Wisdom Radiance, manifesting health, wealth, and happiness from the inside out. I know it's kind of a mouthful. And yeah, it's a 90-day program really designed again for that high achieving business owner, generally speaking, females, but I would work with males as well. But yeah, so it's really the 90 days is a really good time frame because we meet once a week for an hour. Could be a little bit over an hour if we happen to get into a conversation that needs a little bit more time. And then we're just working through developing some grounding inside mindset and helping people really see that our experience is coming from the inside and not the outside. And that's something we
Mm,
haven't talked about too much today, but really that's the crux of where I come from, because so many times we've been conditioned through parents and society and everything else that again, that we have to go out there and get it. But really it's like it starts from the inside. And I help people refocus and recalibrate around that. And then we work through a bunch of other things on yeah, just mindset and behaviors and conditioning, and get really grounded in that so that a person can get to what their purpose is and how to fulfill on that.
that's beautiful. Beautiful. So yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about the internal world, something you just said, I was like, oh, you know, as a psychic medium, one thing that I know that I hear from so many people is that we have this collective worthiness wound. We don't feel worthy. We don't feel good enough. And what I see in overachievers is that they're pushing beyond that I'm not good enough feeling so that they can achieve, but they still have it in their body. They still feel it underneath that. And the truth of it is that we are constantly taught to look outside of ourselves for our value.
Yeah.
And so I think that you were kind of speaking to that, but the concept of looking within for your value, I was actually literally just reminded of that yesterday, that I'm far too attached to the financial gains of my business and that I just need to focus on the worthiness within
Yeah.
of, that I have a spirit within me, that I have these natural gifts that I can offer the world. And that is where my value is. It's not in the bank account, you know? And I think that's so relevant to what you're talking about. It's getting out of our own way and realizing that sometimes what we've been taught, like oftentimes actually, what we've been taught is wrong. And we almost have to unlearn things.
Yes, so true. Yeah, and it's deep, like the patterns run deep. And but the cool thing is, and I'm sure you experience this with your clients as well, it's like once someone sees it, you can't unsee it. And so it becomes a lot easier to get back to your grounding and yourself and your spirit and your godlike wisdom inside you, because you know the truth, right? And then we just
Yeah.
sort of forget. Like I kind of feel like we're all just reminders to each other, like who we
Yes,
really are.
definitely. Yep. I find that almost every single one of my clients is a mirror somehow. They
Yes.
give me some kind of wisdom that I could not see,
Yeah.
and I think it's something about being in your awareness during your sessions. Because
Yes,
if you're not paying attention during the session, you could easily miss that because
for
it's so
sure.
subtle. It's such a subtle thing to see that reflection and see, oh, I see that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if this comes up for you, but I just had this insight the other day just around just like actually having fun.
Yeah, man,
Right?
no
Like,
kidding. I know
yeah.
now, being a business owner, when exactly do I have fun? When
No,
is my
yeah.
fun? Do I have fun doing my business, or do I actually get to do fun things?
Yeah,
Yes.
just like taking business so seriously. Like I gotta get that bottom line. I gotta get into the black. It's just like boom, boom, boom. And then we're driving again, and it's like, what about the like? How did I get into this in the first place? Well, because it seemed fun and it seemed creative, and I want to help people. And it's like, oh yeah, let's get back to that.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we covered a lot. Is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
Oh gosh, I mean, I could talk to you for hours. It's so much fun, but I think we covered everything. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so how can people reach you?
Yeah, so let's see. My cell phone number is good for texting. So 602-316-4955. And then the best email for me would be ciara@trueleverage.co. And Ciara is spelled Siarra at trueleverage.co. That's the best email for me. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. And of course, the website,
Yeah,
trueleverage.co, right?
truelovers.co. And then, of course, my Instagram, Facebook is just my first and last name. So SIARRADECOMI. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yeah, any of those.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, and we will definitely tag your YouTube channel as well. So there will be, links below where you can get in touch with Ciara. Thank you, Ciara. This has been so much fun.
Stephanie, this has been awesome. I appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Well, and you know what? Now that I said that out loud, maybe this is where my fun is in my business.
Exactly, right? There you go.
Love it. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, have a fabulous day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.